Welcome to Illustrated Beards, brought to you by the Fantasy Shop, best in comics and games since 1981. I am Jason.
I'm Nate.
And as you can see, we have two lovely ladies here with us tonight. This is Niki and Kelsey. They are going to be sitting in and joining us in our comic reviews tonight. We have chosen Superior Spider-Man, number 15, All New X-Men, also number 15, and a new Vertigo title, Trillium, number 1.
Also on the other side is Trillium number 1.
And on the other side is also Trillium, number 1. We'll talk about why here in a little while.
Trillium number 1 by Jeff Lemire. It's a Vertigo number 1. So this book's interesting. I don't even know how to explain this book. It's really weird.
It was like 2 stories into like one story.
Okay, so it's Trillium number 1 on this side,
legit. Yeah.
and then it's Trillium number 1 on this side, and you can start from either side.
It does say
It does,
1
yeah.
and then 1.2.
There's chapter 1 and 1.2. You could start from either side. I started from the wrong side, apparently, but it still makes just about as much sense as it's going to make. It is kind of a book where I'm like, what just happened? To give a quick idea of what the book's about, from one end it's about some sort of expedition to find a hidden temple, and from the other end it's a human scientist in the very distant future trying to find a cure for a sentient virus that is hunting mankind.
Which was incredibly interesting, and
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, both stories end kind of at the same spot from a different perspective. 1920 and then 37 something.
But I mean, it's worth saying again that people who thought that the Vertigo line was not going to be as popular, was not going to be as good after some of these books started falling off, they're dead wrong. I mean, we did Collider last week, Trillium, both brand new number 1s, and they're fantastic.
I have to agree with you. Reading this, it's really good.
It makes you want to read it.
It really does. Mm-hmm. The art, though, I had an issue with.
Yeah, I had an issue with the art because to me, I kept telling Jason and Nate, it felt like zombie people. Like their eyes were kind of hollowed in. They just looked kind of. But the story in general was really good.
I like the art in part because of Jeff Lemire's weird style, and I think that's what it comes down to. Is it's just Jeff Lemire has a really distinct weird style.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's stylized, and when there's really stylized art in a comic where it's very distinct, people either really like it or don't like it at all.
I think it would have been really cool in that to have the art shift.
It's funny that you mention that because that is like the 3rd time that artists switching mid-book has come up on this show.
We do talk about that.
And every time we're like, we don't like it except when there's a reason.
Yes.
Which is pretty much what you like. That would be a valid reason.
Right.
No, I think that would have worked really well. Just the fact that it's 2 chapters and one is right side up while you're reading it and the other's upside down while you're reading it, and you have to flip at the end of the story. I've never seen a book formatted anything like that before. I mean, when I got to that middle page and I saw that there was another page upside down, I was like, okay, there's another half of this and it's upside down, I have to flip the book. I felt that it was fittingly disorienting.
There are books that do weird things with formatting of the panels, and artists who focus on that kind of stuff, but yeah,
I have to agree with you on that. I thought that was very creative in how it's like, oh, now flip it over and start it again.
I feel like that was kind of letting you on to the story a little bit too.
Trillium number 1, Vertigo's line is not slowing down at all.
This line of Vertigo titles coming out reminds me of being 15 and picking up Vertigo trades and being like, oh my god, comics are great. And there hasn't really, aside from Image and some Dark Horse, been books that kind of felt the same way that those books felt, like DMZ.
Yes.
And Transmet.
But Trillium number 1 from Vertigo, definitely impressive what they're doing with their line recently here, and I'm interested to see. We've got a couple other new number 1s coming. Yeah, Jeff Lemire, Trillium number 1, check it out.
It was awesome.
It's great. Superior Spider-Man number 15. Every now and again an issue of this really impresses the hell out of me, and I can't wait to talk about it with whoever will listen. This book has just been completely amazing to me throughout, but this story in particular tells of a new hobgoblin, and it's actually Phil Urich. It's an interesting premise, and we're also treated to another weird cryptic scene of the Green Goblin. We never see the guy's face who gets into this goblin costume, which kind of leads me to believe it may be Norman Osborn, but maybe not. We never actually see the guy's face. He's in a suit similar to what Norman Osborn used to wear. Even when he was just casually hanging out, he always had a suit on. It could be somebody else in a suit. It could be Norman. We don't know yet, and we won't know probably for a little while. It leads to a pretty good fight between Peter and the Hobgoblin, and then Peter, a revelation at the end, which we won't talk about because it's kind of a massive spoiler about how Peter's running the city now. But suffice it to say, his tactics are just completely different than anything we'd ever seen out of Spider-Man prior.
Yep. Yes.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I was just like, whoa, what?
Right.
Like, this is so not Peter Parker. He's changed.
The Avengers have noticed it as well. I mean, they did an issue a while back where the Avengers kind of disowned him. Where they were kind of just like, so we're going to distance ourselves from you. We're kicking you off the team.
One thing I like about this is that even though there were a few moments where I was confused about what was happening because I'm not fully aware of the situation, I think that this book does an exceptional job of like dropping you into the story for a book of its type that has a long running continuity.
Yeah, I agree.
And it has really good what do they call that?
Oh, the little previously.
Little summary?
Oh,
The
yeah,
little
that
previously
did
moments.
help
Previously,
out a lot.
yeah.
So you like knew what
Gives
was
you some
happening.
framework for what's going on.
Almost all Marvel books do that.
Pretty
but
much.
this one does an incredible job of it.
But yeah, I mean, Superior Spider-Man, Dan Slott took a big chance doing what he did, changing Spider-Man's world, and it worked. You know, for the first 6 issues, they kept him in ghost form in the background to kind of gauge what people were thinking. That was their out. If they needed to go back, they could have. But then when they realized people were enjoying it, they got rid of that. They purged that Peter ghost from Ock's brain, which was cool. I mean, and he took a big chance, and it worked. It's been amazing. It's one of those books that just continues to impress me every month when it comes out. I look forward to it.
Okay, so we chose the all-new X-Men issue 15 also. I'm a huge X-Men fan, so I was really excited about this one. We were talking about it earlier, and we really liked it, how you got to see the 5 original X-Men like coming back into the story, because you don't get to see like the 5 of them together anymore in like any of the X-Men series if you read them.
Also, like, I don't really read the X-Men as much. Coming up and like just picking up this book and reading it, it was actually really easy to just jump into this book specifically.
If you haven't been keeping up with All New X-Men, they have brought the 5 teenaged original X-Men from the past into the future to try to fix the problems with their older selves' lives. Cyclops specifically was the reason they did it initially, because Cyclops has gone over the deep end and he's working with Magneto, and he's just, people are viewing him as a bad guy right now. And so yeah, they kind of brought them in, and it triggered Jean's powers, and she got a view of what her life span was.
In this specific issue though, I felt like she was kind of like more chilled, and she's like trying more to control it. We were kind of speculating how things were gonna go once the 5 like X-Men from the previous timeline, like what happens when they go back.
With the exception of Jean, because Jean is obviously going to go back to the past more powerful than when she left.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That is not debatable. And Professor Xavier, he skirts the moral ambiguity of what you need to have in your mind versus what you don't.
Right.
So the obvious thing is he's just going to purge this experience from their minds. Now the only person that he wouldn't be able to do that, like I said, is Jean, because she's obviously going to go back more powerful than when she left.
And this, like, Kitty Pryde, she's kind of taken over them, and I like how she handles it.
It's definitely a twist, because when we were introduced to Kitty Pryde initially back in the Dark Phoenix saga, she was the kid, and Cyclops and Jean and Beast and Iceman, they were older. And it's kind of funny to see her as their teacher. And it's funny because they don't fight that, because they came from a time when they are students.
Yeah.
So they are very eager to just jump back into that role in this time period. You know, there's a school still. It's not at all the school they remember, but it is a school still, and they are still students.
I also like the comic relief in this.
The interactions with Cyclops, Iceman, and the humans that they run into, that was actually really, really quite funny.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about you're Cyclops, but I saw you on the cover of like People magazine, and you looked like you were like 40.
He's like, no.
Are you his son?
When Bendis writes good dialogue, it's like extremely good.
Yeah.
Bendis is either fantastic or okay.
Cheesy.
But this is definitely like on the upper end of Bendis writing for sure.
Yeah. This issue, I mean, the whole Jean Grey and the Beast, you see them on the cover about to kind of kiss each other. She's training with the older Beast. Like, he's trying to teach her how to use her telekinesis more effectively. He is kind of screaming at her in his head that when he was young, he was kind of in love with her.
When we were reading this, like, we really liked how you got to see, like, what they were thinking, like, back then. Like, it's just kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, and as long as you keep to the core of who these people are, there's no precedent set for what you can expand upon. You know, because he's not changing anything about who they are, but he's adding layers that we just were never privy to. when reading it then. But yeah, All New X-Men number 15. Again, there's 2 hardcovers out for this one already. Yep. So check it out. It's been a fantastic series so far. It really has. I do want to take the opportunity before we are done to talk about the book club. We have selected the book. It is Joker by Azzarello and Bermejo. The group that I have on Facebook for the book club, I will put a message up as soon as the books are in. Again, we'll sell them at 20% off to encourage everybody to participate. And once we get the books in, we will set a date. Thanks for sitting in and listening to us babble about things that we love. I would like to say thank you to Niki and to Kelsey for coming on and hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Really awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks again for being a part of it. We'll see you next week.
And cut.